From the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. We're brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. You can go online anytime and order your pizza at papajohns.com. We're going to do the inbox, your email questions answered here on video. And Barry, it was a big week for email questions. Let's start with Jeff. Jeff says, what are your thoughts on how some of the SEC powers every year will schedule a non-conference cupcake late in the year while other teams are knocking one another off? Do you think the committee will take that into consideration? Lots of cupcakes late in the year for SEC teams, Barry.
Alabama, for instance, playing Western Carolina this week, and almost all of them are playing. Mississippi State played Tennessee Martin the other day. So we see this a lot. I don't think it is a consideration because it's just transference of when you're playing. The Big 12 plays, all of its cupcakes, similar types in September. So I don't think it's a factor. I think, in fact, I think it could tend to hurt the SEC because whether it's right or wrong, I think recent results impact the human brain. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's better to play your marquee games later in the year. SEC, of course, is riding high without that. But I don't think it's a consideration. It's just annoying to have to see these games in November or to September. I don't like them anytime.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think it is going to be interesting to see, although I think with the SEC, the perceived power or power of the SEC, however you want to, talk about that, is probably enough to override these late season, non-conference, non-factors when you talk about scheduling. If this was, say, the ACC or Big 12 even, a conference that is maybe struggling a little bit in the just how powerful is this conference argument, then you might have more of a problem. But I think with the SEC, these teams that are playing these cupcakes are turning around and playing a top 5 team the next week. And frankly, I think that probably balances out in the end. All right, back to the inbox. Tom says, in my opinion, OSU's administration and Mike Gundy are suffering from the age-old problem of an eccentric, ego-driven, generous donor thinking he is the boss of the organization because he donates more money than anyone else does. Obviously in reference to the rift between Boone Pickens and Mike Gundy.
Yes, and to Tom I would say, okay, and what's your point? No kidding. Boone Pickens, in many ways, propped up Oklahoma State football and made it relevant in the Big 12 with that, $500 million total. That's the reason we have an absolutely phenomenal stadium in Stillwater is because of Boone Pickens. And guess what? When people care that much, they give that much money. And when they care that much and give that much money, they want to have a place at the table. So there's not any doubt that when you have a donor like that, it leads to friction and problems that you've got to sort out. Lots of schools go through this, but what happens is most schools have worked it out better than OSU have. They haven't let it come to a personality conflict. That's really what we're talking about. It's a personality conflict here between Boone Pickens and Mike Gundy. They needed long ago to sit at a table, hash this out. Didn't happen. Now I don't know if it's irreparable.
Yeah, and you called Boone Pickens, I think rightfully so, called him the owner before. I mean, he wants to be the boss. Yeah. I think when you give that kind of money, there's influence that's bought with it. And I think OSU knew that. To me, there's probably an issue of, does Boone Pickens maybe want to talk to Mike Gundy, twice a week or 3 times a week? Or, I don't know. I don't know what he's after. But, there needed to probably be some brokering of, okay, we can talk Mondays and Thursdays, and we'll talk at 9, and we'll talk for 15 minutes, and then I've got to go to this meeting. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is/was, but I'm not sure they can get back to that point because, frankly, I'm not sure Boone Pickens wants to sit in a room with Mike Gundy, much less talk to him.
I'm not sure Gundy wants to sit in a room with Boone.
You might
Hence
be right.
the problem.
Hence the problems. All right, back to the inbox. Lynn says, seems to me that Mike Stoops and I guess Bob Stoops have kind of not changed what was working in 2000, and now football in 2014 is evolving into something else. Interesting question here from Lynn.
Yes, it is. And not to pick on Lynn, but you got to be kidding me. Really? You think OU is doing the same things in 2014 it was doing in 2000? The defense is different. They're running a 3-4. They're not even in the same defensive alignment. The offense is different. In 2000, they were running Mark Mangino's version of Mike Leach's spread. Is that what they're doing with quarterback run option and all kinds of stuff? They're not doing anything like it. Here's the deal. The Sooners have progressed. They have evolved. They're doing different things, just not working as good. Mm-hmm. And, if you want to string them up for that, fine. If you want to, take them out to the public square and have them flogged and have their checks garnished, I'm all for it. But they've tried new things. They've done different things, doing all kinds of new things. The OU offense, the OU defense looks nothing like 2000. The only thing I can see they're doing about the same is they're yelling at guys about the same as they did. So if you want to say that's the same, okay.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem to be working all that great, frankly. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's probably short-sighted, and that's all right. Fans are frustrated right now. We both hear from a lot of you. We get it. We understand that the results are not up to your standards. That's totally understandable. But, even a couple years ago, the failed no linebackers defense that Mike Stoops threw out there, at least, he was trying something. It was ill-fated, and it was probably ill-advised and all sorts of other ills. But, at least there was an effort to say, what can we do to try to stop some of these spread offenses? That was a miserable failure. But, I think there's an effort to try to counteract some of this. But sometimes it just doesn't work, and sometimes you don't have the horses to make what you're doing work as it is. All right, one more time to the inbox. Joel says, interesting article regarding whether or not Texas is the best job in college football. Barry wrote that last week. Clearly you think it's not, and sounds like Mac Brown doesn't either. Okay, so what is?
It's a great question, and right now it's an easy answer to say Alabama, because Alabama has the fabulous tradition, has won big throughout its history, and is winning big now. But Alabama's had its dips as well. So the question is, what program could consistently be the biggest winner? And it goes back to a sort of a trending topic. I actually think it's Florida. I think in the state of Florida is where you want to be. In the SEC is where you want to be. In the East Division of currently, in the West, you got a little bit more saber-toothed than in the East. I think it's Florida. But if you want to throw in Southern Cal, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State. If I wanted to make a number two, I'd probably say Ohio State, because I think they're the last bastion of big-time football in the North. But I'm going to go with Florida. Yeah,
I think that's a good one. And, it's not to say Texas isn't a good job, but as Mac Brown said to me and Barry mentioned last week in that column, there are a lot of interests when it comes to Texas football. There's probably a lot of interest a lot of places, but I think it might be multiplied when you're talking Texas football. And one of the first things that he was told that he was going to have to do was go in and basically put all the BBs back in the box. They were scattered all over the place. And frankly, I think that's probably something Charlie Strong is doing or having to do after Mac Brown's departure. So that and sort of the differing interests, the political nature of Texas football, it makes it difficult. I might go with Florida State as the best job, just in terms of you're in the state of Florida, the rich recruiting grounds that are there. You're not in the SEC, you're in the ACC, where maybe wins are easier to come by. Now, obviously, if you win at Florida, even if you lose a game or two, the SEC probably makes up for that. But maybe Florida State right now, and you don't have to worry so much about what happens when players get in trouble these days either. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.